This is Tom Fox, and I'm taking a solo turn for the Compliance Weekly News today as both Gil and Andrew are on assignment. Our first story comes to us from the Kerrville Daily Times, which reports that Kerrville Economic Development Corporation Interim Executive Director Katie Milton Jordan has resigned as she has taken a full-time position in San Antonio. She was named to this position after the departure of Gilberto Salinas to become the chief executive officer of the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation, his hometown. She enjoyed her time here, was very well respected, and we are sorry to see her go. Next up, Schreiner University's first star party is set for this week, and Kim Arvidsson, the Associate Professor of Physics and Astronomy, will host the first star party on January 24th. We had the opportunity to interview him for the Eclipse podcast, and it was a great interview. But this free community event features a 16-inch telescope at the university's domed observation. Guests should be able to view the planets, nebula, stars, star clusters, and galaxies. The event will be canceled if inclement weather ties it down. Next up, there is a new exhibit at the Museum of Western Art, Shermely and Lou. This new exhibit is entitled Shermely and Lou, the Mac Cowboys. The exhibit celebrates the work of the Bandera husband and wife sculptors, Shermely and Lou Mac, and will showcase bronze sculptures based on Western life. John Mack, one of Shermely and Lou's 8 children, loves sharing the remarkable story of his parents' lives. Lou Mack grew up in the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribal Reservation in South Dakota, and she went to an Indian boarding school and worked in the area. In contrast, Mary Shermely Willard grew up as an only child of renowned parents in another household. Shermely's father was a pioneer aviator and rancher and necessitated moving of the family around quite a bit. So the museum is exhibiting their work, and I hope you will check it out. Friends of the Library made a $25,000 donation to support library programs. The donation will help support the library fund and the many ongoing literacy programs. The Friends help funds quality entertainment for area youngsters and their families by bringing noted educators and performers to Kerrville. The Friends also support other library activities, including the purchase of audio and large print books. Please consider becoming a member of the Friends of the Library, which is a 501c3 organization. Got a couple of stories from Frederiksberg and the Frederiksberg Standard, and a very disheartening story. A Frederiksberg doctor was sentenced to 10 years in prison in order to pay $26 million in restitution for a scheme to defraud Medicare by prescribing durable medical equipment and cancer generic testing without seeing, speaking to, or otherwise treating the patients. David Matthew Young was convicted in a Dallas courtroom and has now been sentenced to jail. Our next story also comes from the Frederiksberg Standard, which reports that Steve Baxter, a fifth-generation rancher from Lampasas, says his company will reuse wastewater on site rather than send effluent back into the river. Arch Ray, the development on the eastern edge of the town, or town of Frederiksberg, if you've driven through it, you've seen it, it has taken an about face on how it will treat wastewater. After consulting with a new project engineer, the company will now treat and redistribute wastewater around the property, as opposed to having it processed into effluent and sent down the Pedernales. The Baxter family, who are the owners and have been ranching in Lampasas near Lampasas for 6 generations, made the announcement this week and want to clear the air for critics who feared for the health of the waterway. And so this, I think, is a very positive development, and it may be a model that others can use. We've got Good weather coming this weekend. As everyone listening to this knows, we had a snow in Kerrville this past week. As I tell people, it was one of the 6 snows I've seen in my lifetime in Texas, and that's in over 60 years. So we don't get snow very often. It's always magical when it happens, as long as it's not a snowpocalypse like we had back in 21. So I hope everyone was able to enjoy a safe day indoors with the snow, and I hope you will get out this weekend to go to the Renaissance Festival just outside of Kerrville. The weather should be great, a little chilly in the morning, but it's going to warm up nicely. So I hope you'll take advantage of the Kerrville Renaissance Festival. We look forward to visiting with you again next week. This is Tom Fox. I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Kerrville Weekly News Roundup. This podcast is a production of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I hope you will subscribe or rate and review this podcast wherever great podcasts are listened to. I hope you'll join Gilbert, Andrew, and myself next week, where we take a look at some of the top stories from Kerrville and the surrounding Hill Country area. Thanks so much for listening.